Welcome back to East High School. My name is Matt. I'd like to teach you a little more math if you are ready to learn. Let's look at this problem. It's 5 plus 6 plus 5 times 3. And I've done it two different ways to show you it can be done two different ways. In this way, we just add the numbers in order. 5 plus 6 is 11. Plus 5 times 3. In the next step we add the 11 and the 5 and we get a 16. And then we multiply 16 times 3 and we get 48. And of course I've written here wrong, but let's think about it. In this version, I actually, the first thing I did was multiply the 5 times 3, and I got 15. And I added the 5 plus 6, and I got 11. Then I added the 11 plus the 15, and I got 26. And the question you might ask is, why is this one wrong and this one correct? Well, in the correct version, in math, there's an order to how we do the operations. Operations are addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Those are the operations, but there is an order, recognized order to mathematical problems. And one of the first things we do is we multiply. If there's addition in a problem and multiplication, you do the multiplication first. And so again down here we have another problem. Let's see. We have another problem, 24 divided by 4 plus 6 times 5. So we have an order of operations, which, and I have a mnemonic device to show you, but the correct way to do this problem is first thing we do is do what's in the parentheses. It's understood that if there's something to be done in the parentheses, you do that first. 6 times 5 equals 30. And then the next thing would be to do exponents, but there are no exponents in this problem. So the next thing we do, we've done multiplication, then we can do division. 24 divided by 4 is 6, and we get 6 plus 30 is 36. So I want you to understand there's what's called an order of operation, and I'll now show you the official order of operation poster. Just another one of my scary posters. You can see it says PEMDAS at the top, and it's each of the letters stands for a word. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So that's the official order of operations. When you simplify a problem, such as we have been doing, you start by doing what's in the parentheses first. So that's the P is parentheses. E is exponents, and I have not introduced you to exponents, but I will show you a problem with exponents. So you would do what's in the parentheses first, and sometimes parentheses, there can be more than one. There can be brackets which work the same way. Exponents. Then if the parentheses are done and there are no exponents, then you would do the multiplication and division. And as far as multiplication and division, think of them as one thing. You just work from left to right. So if there's a division before a multiplication, you can do the division first. But the next step is multiplication, division. Think of that as one. And then when you finish the multiplication and division, then you can do addition and subtraction. And so there's a mnemonic device written at the bottom that people have used for years. I'm not sure it's necessary. It's "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." It's as if "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally" is a mnemonic device that's supposed to help you remember the order of operations, which is parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Okay, let's do another example. The bottom problem on this page is a -2 times a -4 plus a -6 plus 5. So according to PEMDAS, there's no work to be done in parentheses. There are numbers in parentheses that don't count. Because there's nothing to be done inside individual parentheses. So there's no parentheses and no exponents. The next thing we look for is multiplication, and here -2 times a -4. Remember, a negative times a negative is a positive. -2 times -4 is 8. Okay, so now we've done the multiplication first. There's no division. We look for addition and subtraction, and here we're going to add -6 plus 5. So we have 8 plus, and -6 plus 5 is -1. So we have 8 plus a -1, and a -1, we go further to the left. So we start with 8, -1 goes one step to the left, which is 7. So our answer becomes 7. This is an example of order of operations. So remember that the first step is parentheses. We need to do what's in the parentheses. 27 divided by 3 is 9. Over here we have a parentheses, 8 times 2, which is 16. So then the next step in the PEMDAS is exponents, parentheses, exponents. And I'll go into exponents more later, but 5 with an exponent of 2 is the same as 5 times 5, which is 25. So the first thing we did, we did the parentheses. The second thing we did was the exponent, do second. 5's, they call it 5 squared or 5 to the second power, or sometimes they call it, an exponent of 2. So that's 25. Now we have 9 plus 25 minus 3 plus 16. So there are no multiplication or division. So then we go to addition and subtraction. And again, addition and subtraction, there's the order at this point. If there's only addition and subtraction, we just go from the left to right. So 9 plus 25 is 34. For the moment, I just brought down the minus 3. Okay, and then plus 16. I brought that down. One thing to notice is that I work in steps, and I hope you do too. When you work on paper, write the problem out completely, and then each time you make a change, write it out so that it comes out in steps, so that later you might be able to see where you might have gone wrong. you do the steps and try not to leave them out. Step number 3, we're just going to do the additions and subtractions. 9 and 25 is 34, minus 3 gives us 31, plus the 16 equals 47. So again, when working in math and algebra, it's important to do problems according to the order of operations, and just try to remember parentheses first. They call them symbols of enclosure or something. It can be parentheses, it can be brackets. Exponents next, then multiplication, division, and addition, subtraction. Let me demonstrate one more problem using the order of operations. This one similar to the others, but it includes a fraction, and you just follow the same order of operations that you have done before. In this particular case, what's in the parentheses is 5 plus 3. So the first thing you do is 5 plus 3. So I've written 5 plus 3 down here equals 8. And then then I wrote it all out again. Notice that I don't change too much each time. I take it in steps. So now 8 to the second power, 8 to the second power over 4, just as it was here, plus 3 times a negative 1. Whenever a number is next to another number in parentheses in algebra, that's the same as if there were a multiplication sign. So imagine a little multiplication sign there. This is 3 times a negative 1. That's part of what you need to get used to in algebra, is the change in the symbols. 3 times a negative 1. So in the second step of the problem, this is the problem. In the second step of the problem, we get rid of the exponent. And remember, 8 to the second power is the same as 8 times 8. It's 8 taken 2 times, multiplied by itself twice. So 8 times 8 is 64. So now down here we have the problem of 64 over 4 plus 3 times a negative 1. So our second step was to get rid of the exponent. Third step is to divide. When you see a fraction such as 64 over 4, recognize when you're simplifying a problem and you see a fraction like 64 over 4, a fraction is essentially a division problem. It's the same as 64 divided by 4. And so 64 divided by, and so we would do division next, division and multiplication. But I'll divide this one first. 64 divided by 4 equals 16, plus 3 times a negative 1 gives us negative 3. A positive times a negative is a negative. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. So that's the fourth thing I did, was multiply 3 times negative 1. Finally, I used the number line here just to demonstrate the last step. In the last step, I have 16 plus negative 3. So I start at the number 16, and I'm going to add a negative 3. Remember, adding a negative 3, we go to the left. So I'm going to go 3 spaces to the left, 15, 14, 13. So we simplify. 16 plus a negative 3 gives us an answer of 13. So we've simplified. They don't call it solving problems all the time in algebra. Sometimes they refer to it as simplifying. you simplify this mess here and boil it down to the number 13. So just remember to use your order of operations when doing those problems.